something that surprised me when I first learned it. The same mechanism that makes stinging nettle hurt you is exactly the same mechanism that heals you. And I don't mean that poetically. I mean the actual chemical compounds in those tiny needles that feel like fire on your skin are performing a specific type of medicine that almost nothing else in nature can do. There's a way to use stinging nettle where you actually want it to sting you. It's an ancient therapy that sounds absolutely insane until you understand the energetics of what's happening. And I'll show you exactly when and why you'd choose pain over pleasure with this plant. First, though, we need to talk about why nettle is called the Great Normalizer and why that makes it one of the most misunderstood plants in herbalism. But here's the thing. I'll never forget the first time I made nettle tea. The instructions warned me, drink it for 3 days, pay attention, write down everything you notice. Okay, so day 1, I didn't notice anything. Day 2, I realized I hadn't needed my afternoon coffee and still had energy. Day 3, well, my joints felt different, less achy. I noticed that it didn't do anything dramatic, but everything felt better. And as I grew more familiar with nettle, I realized that's nettle. It doesn't push, it doesn't purge, it doesn't force. It nourishes so deeply that your body just starts working the way it's supposed to. That's what a tropo-restorative does. See, in herbal energetics, we categorize plants by their actions. Some herbs are stimulating, they wake things up, speed things up. Some are sedating, they calm things down, slow things down. Some are heating, some are cooling. But nettle is what we call neutral and nourishing. It's not trying to push your body in any direction. It's giving your body such deep, bioavailable nutrition that your body can finally do its own healing work. But here's the paradox that can be confusing. If nettle's so nourishing and neutral and gentle, why does it sting? Why would a healing plant literally inject you with formic acid, histamine, and acetylcholine, the very same chemicals that fire ants use to defend themselves? Well, it turns out the sting is the medicine. When those hollow needles pierce your skin and inject their cocktail of compounds, they're performing what's called counter-irritant therapy. They're creating localized inflammation on purpose, bringing blood flow, immune response, and healing factors directly to the site. This is called urtication in traditional European medicine. You literally whip arthritic joints, paralyzed limbs, or areas of chronic pain with fresh stinging nettle, and it works. Studies show it reduces pain and improves function in osteoarthritis better than many pharmaceutical interventions. I'll never forget the time when members of a primitive skills school hiked down the rugged Boston mountains to spend the weekend with me in Camp Honor. One of them, a heavy-set woman with bad arthritic knees, could hardly walk when she got down into the valley, and was afraid she wouldn't be able to hike back up the mountain to get home. It so happened I was teaching about stinging nettle that weekend, and welcomed the opportunity to demonstrate urtication. Not only did the nettle relieve her pain, the swelling went down, and after she successfully climbed back up the mountain and returned home, she started growing it to continue treating her knees. So keep this in mind. You're not choosing between sting therapy or nourishing therapy. You're choosing between two completely different energetic actions from the same plant. Fresh nettle, with the stingers intact, is going to be warming, moving, stimulating, and dispersing. Dried cooked nettle, with the sting neutralized, will be cooling, building, nourishing, and tonifying. Same plant, opposite energetics. So how do you know which version of nettle your body needs right now? Because I see people making nettle tea every day when they should be doing urtication. And I see people trying urtication when their body's screaming for nourishment. So let's break down the energetics. First, let's look at dried cooked nettle, the nourishing side. When you dry nettle or cook the fresh nettle, those stinging hairs collapse. The histamine and formic acid break down, and what you're left with is one of the most nutrient-dense plants on earth. Let's look at the energetic properties. It's cooling, moistening, and building. It nourishes blood and fluids. In traditional Chinese medicine, it would be called a yin tonic. Energetically, it's moving downward and inward. It's a tropho-restorative. It rebuilds tissues over time. So what's actually in dried nettle? First of all, insane amounts of bioavailable iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Also vitamins A, C, and K. Then there's chlorophyll, which is a blood builder, and lots of protein. 25% protein by dry weight. It also contains silica, which is great for connective tissue, hair, skin, and nails. So the primary uses for dried and cooked nettle include anemia and iron deficiency, chronic fatigue and burnout, allergies. Now this is for a long-term nourishing strategy, not acute. Use it for weakened connective tissue, depleted adrenals, hair loss, brittle nails, osteoporosis prevention, and as a kidney tonic. Here's the key to understanding dried nettle's energetics. It works by nourishing deficiency. In traditional medicine systems, we talk about excess versus deficiency patterns. Excess means too much heat, too much inflammation, tension, too much buildup. And deficiency means not enough energy, or blood, or nutrients, or resilience. Dried nettle is for deficiency, period. If you're depleted, exhausted, anemic, running on fumes, burned out, this is your plant. You're not looking for something to do something to you. You're looking for deep, sustained nourishment. And this is crucial. Nettle nourishment is cumulative. 1 cup of tea does nothing. Daily use for weeks or months can be life-changing. I've seen people reverse anemia, grow back hair, eliminate chronic fatigue. But it took 3 to 6 months of daily nettle infusions, not tea, infusions. A nettle infusion is when you steep an ounce of dried nettle in a quart of water for 4 to 8 hours. Now it's okay to start with hot water and then just let it sit, or you can make a cold water infusion. It's going to be dark, rich, mineral heavy. Nothing like the pale tea most people make. But what if you're not deficient? What if you're stuck, blocked, stagnant, tight? That's when you want the other nettle, fresh nettle, the stimulating side. Now we're talking about fresh stinging nettle with the sting intact. Remember, this is a completely different medicine. Its energetic properties include being warming, drying, and moving. It disperses stagnation and cold. It has outward and upward movement. It acts as a counter-irritant. It brings healing response to the surface. This is nettle as a stimulant, as a mover, as an activator. Its primary uses in the practice of topical urtication are for arthritis pain, especially cold, stiff joints, paralysis or nerve damage. It stimulates nerve response. Also poor circulation to extremities and chronic muscle tension and delayed wound healing. Its primary uses internally, using the fresh, or freeze-dried extract are for acute allergies. That's a different mechanism than dried nettle. For benign prostate hyperplasia, and there you're going to focus on using the root. For acute fluid retention, and for sluggish digestion. So here's what's happening energetically. Fresh nettle doesn't build, it moves. It stimulates, activates, and disperses. When you sting yourself with nettle, you're creating a healing crisis on purpose. You're telling the body, bring resources here now. Blood flow increases, immune cells rush in, inflammatory mediators flood the area, and paradoxically, chronic inflammation often decreases because you've unstuck the stagnation. For acute allergies, freeze-dried nettle, which preserves the histamine compounds, works through a completely different mechanism than dried nettle. It's thought to work through like cures like principles, giving your body a small dose of histamine so your mast cells calm down and stop overreacting to pollen. Using dried nettle for allergies, think of that as long-term nourishment strategy, takes months. Using fresh freeze-dried nettle for allergies is for acute symptom relief, and that takes minutes to hours. You can see here the difference in energetics. One builds over time, and one acts now. Now here's something else that's really interesting, and even experienced herbalists miss this sometimes. There is a third way to use nettle that combines both energetics, and it's specifically for one condition that has become epidemic. This preparation is both nourishing and moving, both building and clearing. It's the perfect medicine for a pattern that shows up as wired but tired, can't gain energy no matter how much you rest, brain fog with anxiety, depleted but can't relax. Can you guess what that is? Before I tell you, you need to understand nettle's relationship with the kidneys and adrenals, because this is the key to unlocking its deepest medicine. The answer here is nettle seed, and the pattern is adrenal dysfunction. Nettle seed is the part folks don't talk about, but traditional herbalists consider it the most potent preparation for exhaustion that's so deep you can't sleep your way out of it. Here are the energetics for nettle seed. They're warming, nourishing, and tonifying. Nettle seed moves to the kidney-adrenal axis specifically. It rebuilds while restoring function. So just think about a seed. It contains the entire future plant in concentrated form. All the building blocks, all the energy, all the potential. That's what nettle seed does for your kidneys and adrenals. Here's how it's used traditionally. For adrenal fatigue, HPA axis dysfunction. For kidney weakness, which could include frequent urination, low back pain, and cold extremities. It's used as both a male and female reproductive tonic. And for deep constitutional exhaustion, you take the seed as a tincture or grind fresh seeds and add them to food. They have a nutty, earthy flavor. Harvest them in the late summer when the seeds are green but fully formed. The energetics here are both nourishing, like the dried leaf, and activating, like the fresh plant, but in a balanced way that doesn't overstimulate. It's rebuilding your reserves while restoring function. Now let's talk about how to know which nettle preparation you need. Use dried nettle leaf infusions if you're depleted, anemic, exhausted, if you have deficiency signs, you're pale, cold, weak, and brittle, and you need long-term building. And for chronic allergies, here think of it as a 3 to 6 month strategy. Use fresh freeze-dried nettle if You have acute allergies right now, and you need immediate symptom relief. If you have stagnant, stuck, blocked energy, and use urtication for cold, arthritic joints. Use nettle seed if you're exhausted but wired. You have adrenal kidney depletion and can't recover from stress. You need both building and activating. But here's one of the things that folks get wrong. You can't just take nettle and expect results. Remember, you've got to match the preparation to the pattern. You have to understand that dried nettle for acute allergies will do nothing. You need fresh or freeze-dried. You have to understand that fresh nettle won't rebuild anemia. You need dried infusions for months. This is the difference between herbalism and just taking supplements. Real herbalism is reading your body's signs, understanding energetics, and matching the right preparation to what's actually happening. Nettle is generous. It offers you 3 different medicines from the same plant. Deep nourishment with the dried leaf, acute stimulation with fresh and freeze-dried nettle, and constitutional restoration using the seed. The question isn't, does nettle work? The question is, which nettle do I need right now? So here's some homework. Look at your body right now. Are you depleted, stuck, exhausted but wired? Choose your nettle accordingly. And if you're not sure, start with dried nettle infusions for 30 days. Because honestly, most of us are more depleted than we realize. And sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't the one that does something to you. It's the one that gives you what you need to heal yourself. So thanks for watching. Now, go make friends with this incredible plant. Just maybe wear gloves first.